Hey everyone, welcome to Dreadnought Mondays. Thanks for tuning in and joining us today. Today we're joined by Michael Whitehouse. Michael, it's great to have you here. I appreciate you taking the time to jump on. If you wouldn't mind, take a minute to tell people who you are and what you're about.
Well, thank you, Kenny, for having me on the show. It's great to be here. So I'm Michael Whitehouse. I'm the guy who knows a guy. That name comes from a book that I wrote a few years ago about networking and how I built a substantial network from nothing when I moved to Groton, Connecticut here in 2014. So these days, I am a mindset and business coach. I'm a motivational speaker. I do a daily motivational podcast called Morning Motivation. And I also run a conference, a virtual conference called Conference 21. So, and all these things, well, some of them have precedence prior to the pandemic. Basically, everything I'm doing now is pandemic pivot because what I was doing before didn't work. And it turned out that was kind of a good thing because I was sort of trapped by moderate success. I wasn't wildly successful. I wasn't failing, but I was doing well enough that I couldn't give it up and not well enough that I was happy with it. So when I was forced to re-examine everything, I was able to really find some positive changes to make and move in a really exciting direction. So, and some of it involves doing things like getting on awesome podcasts like this. So here we are. And that's where the story takes me.
Awesome. Sounds like quite an adventure there. I want to jump right into your book and Guy Who Knows a Guy. How did that come about when you started writing the book? What kind of mental state were you in, kind of thing? Was it, yeah, I'm excited to write this book, or like, holy crap, who am I to write a book?
So with the book, it was it all started in I said 2014 when I moved to Groton, which, let me go back about 9 months before that. So my now wife and I got pregnant back in 2013 because we were in great shape. We were making the most money we've ever made. We were stable. We were good. We were in a good relationship. We're like, hey, now it's time to have a baby because everything else is stable and secure. And I bet you can guess where this story is going to go. You know, within the next 9 months, we'd both changed jobs. We'd moved. Everything was totally thrown up in the air. So we landed in Groton, and I kind of had this half-baked idea of starting some kind of consulting, business consulting or something. And that idea didn't end up really going anywhere, but I knew I needed to build a network to do it. And I knew absolutely no one in the county when we moved here. So I'd done networking before in other areas, and I took everything I knew and dialed it up to 11 and went whole hog, full force, every business after hours, every business before hours, every ribbon cutting, anything I could find to get in there and make connections. I did. And before I knew it, I had a substantial network to the point that, this is New England. And in New England, we joke that people ask you, where's your grandfather from? And if the answer is not right here, then you're considered to be new. So there are a lot of deep roots in New England. But I was finding I had connections to people of note in the area that people who lived here for 3, 4, 5, 12 generations did not know. Because when you grow up in an area, you think you know everybody. So you don't make an effort to build connections. And within 2 and 3 years, I was being asked to fill vacancies on elected bodies in town as I was recruited into the Rotary Club and subsequently asked to be president of the club, which I'm actually now serving as the president of the Groton Rotary Club, which is a great honor to be able to do. And a lot of it was because I built this network fairly quickly. And it wasn't that I have some sort of magical networking talents. I had done something and I'd done it repeatedly and I knew what I'd done so I could write it down. So the book was basically just taking what I had just done over the past 3 years and writing it down and then sharing some stories. So it wasn't just a dry, this is your manual on networking and how to build a network. So I had some stories, had some funny parts to it. It was fun. And, it's a 76-page book. It's not a great tome of knowledge. But besides the fact that I wanted to share what I knew, I also wanted to be able to add the word author to my resume. And I realized all you have to do to be an author is write a book, which sounds kind of intuitive, but you can self-publish a book now. So it's not like you have to write a book and then get it to a publisher and have them approve it. And no, you just have to write a book and then go to Kindle Direct Publishing and publish a book. And now you're an author. Done. I mentioned in the book that this book could say, I am a baked potato 20,000 times. And it would serve almost the same purpose for me as the actual book does. Because then people will be like, oh, you're an author, really? Suddenly people see me in a different way because I've got that. And now that I'm a coach, now that I'm speaking more, now I've kind of burnished my resume a bit more, the author thing isn't quite as important. But at the time, I had 15 years of business experience, but I was working for a printing company and people just saw me as a salesman. And I'm like, I've got 10, 15 years of marketing experience I can share with you. They're like, yeah. Take my order, get me my business cards, and take the order, taker boy. So I wanted the book to kind of show that I'm not just some salesman, that I actually had more to it. And of course, a lot is built up around that.
Awesome. That's, you brought up just a salesman, and it's kind of in some ways unfortunate that a lot of salesmen have been pigeonholed in behind that word.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, no, I've got this and this and this and this, a whole lot more to me than just salesman. Just let me show you kind of thing. So it's unfortunate, and you gave a great example of how you were able to get past that and say, no, I'm not just a salesman. Yes, I'm very good at sales or what I do, but here's what else I can do.
Well, ironically, by the time I actually finished the book, I had gotten a job as a marketing manager. So I never actually needed the book to elevate my salesman role. But I think some of the issue too is a lot of salespeople pigeonhole themselves. Like they really don't know anything about their product. I have a standing policy that I'll meet with anyone for half an hour. So if somebody cold calls me on LinkedIn and says, I've got a product to pitch you, my response is my Calendly link for a 30-minute call. And I now have one, which is, if you're familiar with Calendly, you've got your URL and then / whatever the name of the appointment is. I have now one that's / anyone, because I'll meet with anyone for 30 minutes. And what the first thing it basically is how many salespeople don't get it, that I'll meet with, I'll give you a shot for 30 minutes to say whatever you want to say. And then they'll send me back their link for a 1-hour appointment, or they'll tell me to watch a video. And I'm like, no. I will meet with you for 30 minutes, because some of these salespeople I meet with, they might not have something I want to buy, but they're someone I want to meet, because a good salesperson is a good networker. They've got connections. They're open to other opportunities. They might say, okay, you don't want to buy what I've got, but maybe I want to invite you to my networking group, or you want to invite me to yours, or there's something to talk about. But what I find is probably 2 out of 3 times this 30 minutes is wasted, because so many people in sales just don't get it. And they're just chasing the next sale, and they're just trying to get signature. And if they decide you're not going to buy, then you're a waste of their time, and you can feel that from them. But the 1 out of 3 who do get it are totally worth making those connections. And most disqualify themselves before they even get on the call, so they never even get that far. But there's really definitely 2 kinds of people in sales. There's the ones who are just chasing the commission and don't get the bigger picture, and then there's those who are, sales is how they're making their money, but they also do other things, and they're really worth knowing.
Yeah, and it's important to be able to recognize that. You mentioned also in your industry, that you recognize you were doing okay and stuff, doing pretty good, but you weren't like up at the top, you weren't down at the bottom. How did you recognize that? Because a lot of people, we get stagnant, we don't kind of see that stagnation in our lives and stuff. So how were you able to recognize that, and what are some things that people can look for to see if they're in that stagnation? They're doing okay, they're not.
Yeah, well, so what I was doing before this, I was a magazine publisher for a company that produces community magazines across the country, and it's basically commission based. Technically, I was a 1099 who sort of owned the magazine. It's a complicated situation, but the income I was making from it was such that I was getting by, but we weren't to the point where we could just settle our bills on auto pay and check on the account and be like, yep, it's where it should be. We had to check and make sure, okay, can we pay this week? Let's push this off a week. All right, can we get that right now? No, we can't right now. We were in an uncomfortable but not dangerous financial situation, which was not where I should have been based on the work I'd put in. But I was, as I said, trapped by moderate success. I'd been there for 3 years. I'd built up a fair income. I was making about, I don't know, $40,000 a year or something like that. So I was doing okay, and it looked like I was going to continue to do better, but it was a very slow plodding climb. And had it not been for COVID, I think it wouldn't have been bad to stay there, because I think I would have gotten to a good spot within a year or two, and I would have been plugging along, making decent money. It wasn't, as a community publisher, so I got to be out in the community, make connections. We made a great product that was good for people. But once COVID hit, I lost the resource of local networking, and that's how I was finding most of my prospects, most of the people who were actually signing on. So I went from 2 sales a month to 1 sale a quarter. And I realized very early on, despite what our governor here in Connecticut told us we'd be shut down for 2 weeks, which I knew was malarkey the moment I heard it. I knew this was going to be a long haul thing, and get comfortable. It could be 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, but this will be the way it's going to be for a while. You can't just hold your breath and wait it out. And after 3 years with the magazines, I said, I can't do it again. I can't start from scratch and learn how to do something. I don't have the energy to restart the same project again. But what that did was it freed me up to then re-examine everything. And I said, so now what? And I was actually casting about for ways to keep the magazine business going. And I discovered some strategies for selling coaching. And I employed those strategies and put them to work and started getting coaching clients. And for a brief time, my coaching business was making as much after 3 months as the magazine was. And I said, well, it seems like the writing's on the wall. Coaching is what I want to do for me. And I don't need support. I don't need designers and production and people to mail the magazines and print them and all that. Coaching is just me. People give me money for my time and my expertise. And what I later realized is by doing that, I was able to pursue whatever other avenues presented themselves. So I now do a daily motivational podcast called Morning Motivation with Michael Whitehouse. And I started that as a one-off low priced offer. So for $9, you would get a daily message every day in December leading up to 2021 to get your mind right for the new year. And I quickly realized that I could do better with it if I gave it away for free and use that as the kind of on-ramp to meet me instead of trying to squeeze $9 out of people. So I made it free, and within 45 days, people were telling me if I'd miss a day, I'd start getting emails saying, hey, I needed that. Like, that's how I get started. You missed it this morning. Today was all messed up for me. I didn't have your podcast. And I said, oh, I guess I got a thing going on here. But that's something I wouldn't have been able to pursue if I'd still been with the magazine, where I'm really kind of following. I was playing out of someone else's playbook. And part of, to get to your theme, the Dread No Mondays idea, part of what makes me less afraid to take those kinds of leaps is a lot of the worst case scenarios are behind me. So I think for a lot of people, they're so afraid of, what would happen if, what if some sort of nasty rumors start getting spread and all my friends turn on me. Well, it's now not a what if. It's I've got a story about that, and I have details, and I survived it. And what if my business collapses and the whole community built around it is lost because I'm not able to make the business profitable? Yep, that happened in 2007. So I know what that is. So many of these what if worst case scenarios have already happened that I now basically, my attitude is I've survived everything so far. There's no reason I'm going to stop now. Everything somehow works out. I haven't been homeless in a very long time, not since I lived in the back room of my store for 2 months back in 2003. But I haven't been homeless. I haven't had to skip meals because I didn't have money. I haven't been evicted. Haven't had a car repossessed. None of that stuff's happened because somehow it's always worked out. And I think a lot of times we get so worked up about what's going to happen. Oh my God, what if I do this? I can't find the money. And I actually got to the point in December where I had a number of irons in the fire, but they weren't heating up fast enough. And the bills were coming and the revenue wasn't. And I said, I got to do something. I went out on Craigslist. And I found some gigs delivering packages for $5 a package or something. And then that got me looking at like DoorDash and those kinds of things, and realized, oh, I could just go do DoorDash, make $22 an hour, and listen all those audiobooks I should be listening to as a coach anyway that I don't have time for. Listen to them while doing DoorDash. Basically, I was getting paid $22 an hour minus expenses, really $18 an hour, to drive around, listen to audiobooks and podcasts, and educate myself. Whatever every situation I've come into, I found some way through it. And I think to some degree that comes with age. You get to a certain point where enough things have happened behind you, you're not afraid anymore because you've been there and done that. But I think that's really the key to kind of not dreading what's coming next, is to get to that point where you're like, something's going to happen, probably survive it, or it'll kill me. In which case I don't have to worry about that either. One way or the other, it's gonna work itself out one way or another.
I love that. And one of quote I heard, I don't remember who quoted it, so is you know and I'm gonna butcher this, but something to the effect of you know oh, I'm totally gonna butcher it. Choices weigh ounces, regret weighs pounds, or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go find it now to make sure I get it right. But,
Yeah.
I'd rather not worry about the what ifs. I'm more afraid myself of the I wish I had.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the hindsight 2020 thing. So that's one of the things that pushes me. It's like I wish I'd done that kind of thing and stuff. And so I like how you brought that up in the what if this, what if this, what if a meteor hits the Earth, what if what if we get another ice age and stuff, and like you said, we're not gonna have to worry about it then anyways. So
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's it. Like the pandemic for a lot of people, if you described the pandemic, lockdown, quarantine to a lot of people prior to it happening, they would have said, I wouldn't even know what I do. That's an unrecoverable disaster. That's a singularity type event. Like how could I even conceive of what I do? And then we all got through it. And we're like, oh, well, that was mildly inconvenient. And for some people, it actually turned out good. For some people, it has been a personal disaster in one way or another. But I think for a lot of us who've now been through that experience that I had a number of ways before that now we've seen this worst case scenario, and it wasn't actually that bad. Gary Vaynerchuk often talks about how he maintains a lot of equanimity by thinking that his worst case scenario is something happening to his family. And so anything bad that happens in business or life or whatever, he says, how does this compare to a child dying or my wife dying or my mother dying or something like that? And when you do that comparison with everything you look at that happens, you discover nothing really adds up nothing really adds up to much to worry about. It's like, oh, this is annoying. Guess I'll deal with it.
Exactly. It's all that frame of mind. And I just looked it up, and it's discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons.
Yes. Yep.
So, I love that. There's so many things that make it stop us at that huge mountain that appears in our eyes is that pebble is really a pebble in perspective.
Yep. Well, and one of the biggest thing, the regrets I have looking back has always been the missed opportunities, the times when I'd been given runway and didn't take off in that time. In 2014, when I moved here, I was on unemployment. So I had some government funded runway to build something. And since I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have something I was actively trying to do. So I built a network, which is great, but I didn't build a business in the time I had. And I finally ran out and had to go, settle up and get a job. And I started selling cars again. And then this time I had some more runway with PPP and a bit of PUA. And I came out of that and came into the end of last year and hadn't really launched where I wanted to. And I was like, damn it, I had runway again. I screwed it up again. I mean, yeah, I'm better off. I've got something, but like, oh, I didn't do it. And they said, hey, we're doing another round of PPP. And I said, wow, this is amazing. I get a second round of runway right now. Because what will happen is I'll run out of runway and I'll have just spent 3 months, 4 months, 5 months figuring out, making all the mistakes, discovering all the things I didn't want to do. Then I say, okay, if I only had 3 more months, then I could figure this out. Then I'd know what to do. And I was blessed with the support. And it's funny. I posted on Facebook a few weeks ago, and I posted this hypothetical, which is funny because most people didn't recognize it as very realistic hypothetical. And I said, if your expenses could be paid for 3 months, basically you could replace your income magically, your fairy godmother gives you 3 months of money, and you don't have to work. You can do anything you want during that time. What would you do? Because my answer to that has been, probably always will be, dive into the next big opportunity I haven't been able to seize because I haven't had the time to focus on it. And I was surprised. I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was surprised that almost nobody looked at it the same way. Almost nobody said I would use that time to make sure I came out strong on the other side. People would say I'll take a vacation. Some people said I'd keep working and just bank the money, which I think is a pretty responsible answer. But I'd take a vacation, I'd play lots of video games, I'd go get drunk a lot, I'd spend time with my family. That's also a good one if you haven't been able to do that. But just so many of them would in a hypothetical situation just squander it. They just go off and goof off for 3 months and then go back to what they were doing. And I think it's that people can't imagine. They can't imagine that life could be better. So they're not sitting there thinking, just give me my chance and I'm going to go for it and I'm going to make something happen. All they're thinking, hey, for most people, if you could get 3 months of income magically in the bank and you keep working, you could get a down payment on a house. You could certainly get a down payment on a car. We're talking about $6,000, $8,000, $12,000 depending on how much you make. And people just don't have the mindset of I just need a little bit, just give me a little springboard and I can jump to higher places. They've been so almost beaten down by society to say, like, just go to work, get your job, get your paycheck. As I was listening to your last episode where you're talking about safe jobs, and the fact people like to go get their safe jobs or W-2 jobs, and then in March everyone got laid off from their safe jobs, but we're all conditioned, or at least they attempt to condition us to just kind of settle in and do what you're supposed to do and hope it's going to be okay, and maybe you'll get fired and then you'll be screwed, but that's not our problem. So good luck, go back to work.
How do you help people, or what would you recommend to people to help them, they've been conditioned, they've been run down, beat down kind of thing, to recognize some of those opportunities, those mini springboards, as you called them, or whatever. Mm-hmm. Maybe not the 3-month thing, but just a little bit here and there. Or...
Well, I think the first thing is to accept the idea that there's not a hard delineation between classes in America. A lot of people in the have-nots, if you will, have this belief that the haves, the people who are successful, who have money, who are living the middle class or better lifestyle, they somehow got some unfair advantage. Somebody knighted them or handed them a magical access card or something that gives them access to the higher levels. And to some degree, it's people trying to justify what hasn't gone right in their life. My life hasn't gone well, but it's not my fault because I didn't go to the right schools, or I couldn't go to college, or whatever it is. If success was never possible, then you certainly can't blame yourself for not achieving it. And it's a balancing act, because you also don't want to blame people for being poor, because it's not their fault that they grew up in a community where everyone told them they couldn't succeed, or where they went to underfunded schools, or I certainly don't blame them. But then people will look at other people who are more successful and use that as justification. Well, I couldn't possibly gotten better. And then they'll tell other people, in order to justify their own failure, they'll say, neither can you. You can't go anywhere either, because those people are lucky. They got privileges, they got benefits, and they can get up there, and you don't have those. So forget about it. Just enjoy your McDonald's job, and life's tough. But if you can break that mindset for yourself and realize there's no guarded wall, there's nothing stopping you from getting ahead. Now, if some people have more challenges than others, if you have physical or mental disabilities, that might make it more difficult. If you are a single parent and you're raising kids on your own, that's going to make it more difficult. But all things being equal, everyone has the chance to get ahead, to move ahead. And there's certain basic things everyone can do. Everyone can network, especially now, where you can visit a BNI chapter anywhere in the world from the comfort of your own computer. Everyone can network. Everyone can seek out additional income opportunities. I see the whole debate about minimum wage, and like, I have my own personal minimum wage. So, when I've been supplementing with DoorDash, making $20 an hour, I pull up to a drive-through window and somebody hands me the food that I'm going to be delivering, and I realize I make twice as much an hour as the person handing me the food does. And in terms of what we're doing for these jobs, we're equally qualified. I mean, yes, I'm a coach, I'm an author and everything, but none of that applies to delivering food. Anyone can do that. Anyone can, as long as they have a car. But the difference between me and the person working at McDonald's is they don't realize they can do what I'm doing, and they don't realize the opportunity exists. So the first thing is to realize there are opportunities. And if that's all you know, if you just know opportunities exist and can convince yourself of that fact, everything else will eventually fall into place. If you know it's there, you'll look for it. If you don't know it's there, you're never going to look for it, because why look for something that doesn't exist? So if you can shift the mindset to realize there are opportunities and I can take them and they're available to me, I just have to figure out where they are. If you can only do one thing, that's the one thing that'll get you started. And then beyond that, the next thing would be to start networking, start connecting with people, talking to people. And, if you don't know where to network, just network with anybody. Ideally, figure out kind of where you're trying to get to, who you're trying to connect with. If you're trying to get into the veterinary industry, networking with veterinarians is probably a good start. But if you're just thinking, I want to do something better, I don't know what, but there's got to be something better for me, just start talking to people. A one-to-one fundamentally is a meeting, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, where you have a conversation. And just start setting up one-to-ones. Local business owners, people who seem to be doing well, people who seem to be happy, ministers, teachers, elected officials. Most people are pretty accessible. I mean, if you want to meet with the president of the United States or Elon Musk or Gary Vaynerchuk or Tony Robbins, you're probably going to have trouble getting a one-to-one with them. But if you look around your local community, I think so often we're fixated on national figures who are inaccessible that we forget there's a lot of really great people here locally. Wherever you are, you reach out to the manager of the local bank, reach out to the owner of your favorite restaurant, reach out to professors at the local college, someone who seems impressive but lives in your town. If you reach out to them and say, hey, I'm trying to make my life better, I'm trying to figure out what the opportunities are in America, I'd love to pick your brain for 30 minutes, grab some coffee, have a Zoom call, whatever. Most people are going to be like, I'll have that conversation. Yeah. They just want to meet someone who has enthusiasm for life. Like that's the payoff for them. So if you're really looking for that opportunity, people are open to helping you find it. Then each conversation you got to lead to a next. You got to talk to someone. They say, you know who you should talk to next? You should talk to Joe Schmo. Here's his email address. Let me introduce you. I'll send a Facebook message. And most people are fundamentally good, and most people want to help. You just have to put yourself out there where people can find out you're worth helping.
I love that. And I'll give a prime example. I posted on Facebook about looking for guests on my podcast, and that's how you and I connected.
Yep.
Just a simple post.
Yeah. Well, and I have a strict policy on which podcasts I will go on. I only go on the podcasts that invite me after I ask them. So pretty much, yeah. It's, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Yes Man with the funny guy. What the heck's his name? From the Truman Show. Totally blanking on his. Jim Carrey. I don't know why I couldn't remember his name. Getting old. Yes Man with Jim Carrey, which is, I think, was lesser known movies. But the premise of it was that he, for various story reasons, had to say yes to everything. He was convinced he was cursed, that if he didn't say yes, then bad things would happen. So he said yes to everything. Like, he walked by a billboard and it says, do you want to learn Korean? And he's like, yes, I better say yes, because otherwise something bad will happen. Some random person invited him to dinner. He said yes. And it was the hilarious adventures of someone who said yes to everything that presented itself. And at first it led to some challenges, including the government investigating him thinking he was a terrorist because he was taking flying lessons and learning Korean and doing a few other things to put him on a watch list. But in the end, everything turned out very well because he opened himself to all these opportunities, everything that presented himself. He said, yes, that's why I'll meet with anyone for 30 minutes or take a call with anyone for 30 minutes because I never know who I'm going to meet. Just the other day, there was someone on LinkedIn who reached out to me, and that it came right between two clumsy pitches. So it felt like another pitch, but I said, I'll talk for 30 minutes. She said, I'll do you one better. We'll talk for 20 minutes. I said, okay. And I had a 20-minute call. Fantastic conversation. Great person to get to know. So glad we connected. Hopefully she's going to be a speaker at Conference 21 with us. So, you never know where the next connection is going to come from, but it has to do with being open to it. And so many people, and I've discovered this when I was doing sales, they are so resistant to those opportunities. They're so resistant. You try to talk to somebody. I don't want to. I'm not interested. Just looking. They don't want to engage. They don't want to have the conversation. They're so afraid someone's going to take advantage of them or take something from them. And what's interesting is these are the people who don't have much to take from them, but so much have been taken from them in their lives. They're afraid that whatever the little thing they have left, they're holding on so tightly. if you reach out to people who are successful, they're usually much more open because so much has been given to them in their lives, and on balance, things have gone pretty well for them. And I'm sure it's self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe what you have is going to be taken, then you're gonna close the door, shut the blinds, not answer the phone, and you're gonna miss the next great opportunity. Whereas if you believe the world is full of opportunities, you're gonna get screwed now and then. Sure, occasionally you're gonna get ripped off. Occasionally something bad's gonna happen. But on balance, good things are going to happen because you're going to be open to them. And what I always point out to people, con men are much, much better at sounding sincere than sincere people are because they practice. We are really bad at detecting lies, detecting shady individuals. So the con man knows how to get around your defenses, knows how to get you to open the door. The honest person with an honest opportunity doesn't, because they never learned all the techniques the con man did. So the people who are super defensive and guarded get conned proportionally more often because there's people who just study how to take advantage of them, and they only end up getting reached by the people looking to do bad to them. The people looking to do good for them, they've shut out.
It's unfortunate that it's come to that. I want to jump back. You mentioned a couple things, like the DoorDash that you do,
Mm-hmm.
And then you also mentioned opportunities and being open to them. Now you could look at that and be like, oh, this is so beneath me. I could be doing much better things over here or whatever. Or you could say, yes, this helps supplement and allows me to do X, Y, Z. And
Mm-hmm.
while I'm doing it, I can listen to these great podcasts and audiobooks and further educate myself at the same time. So you could focus on what you might see as a negative of that opportunity, or you could see the positivity out of that opportunity. And also with the people that you meet in doing so, whatever that opportunity is,
Mm-hmm.
DoorDash or, just a second regular job at a brick and mortar or whatever, but I love how you pointed that out. And, there could be underlying opportunities.
And I'm glad you brought that up too, because in the fall, I didn't want to take on those gigs because I'm like, I am a coach now. I with the sales strategy I discovered, I signed up 10 clients in 10 weeks and did quite well. And then realized I didn't necessarily have the chops to serve all those clients. And that sort of led to a bit of a crisis of confidence, and the spigot sort of closed. But my thinking was still, I'm a coach. I'm, kind of a big deal. I'm professional coaching people. I can't be out, driving Uber or something. And if I do, I certainly can't let people know it. I was driving Uber last year before the pandemic, and I didn't want anyone to know about it because I didn't want them to think my magazines weren't successful. And partly because some of my job is recruiting other publishers. I didn't want them to think that publishers had to go out and supplement their income. So I've always had this thing about, I can't let people know that I'm doing this scruffy thing on the side. And I finally had this realization in December that I need to be authentic. So if I'm going to be driving deliveries to pay the bills, I'm going to let people know that. Partly because some of the people I can most help are the people who it would change their life to know they could make $20 a month, $20 an hour doing DoorDash. And so why hold that back? And when I started putting it out there, I think some of it almost goes back to a sort of an attitude of nobility that if you go back to the feudal times, or the late feudal times, when this idea of nobles don't work. Nobles at worst live off investments, ideally live off the money from their land. That's what they really should do. But at worst, if they're really going to dirty their hands, they'll invest their money and live off that. But they're certainly not like going into a counting house and doing actual work, because that's so far beneath them. And we've absorbed, unfortunately, this attitude of if you're working for pay, then you're part of the peasantry. And the professional classes don't work for pay. They don't work for wages. They work for, you might sell your services. As a coach, I would sell coaching, but I wouldn't sell fungible services like delivery. Oh my, what kind of a coach would that be? And yet so many people in entrepreneurship, they have skills, but they haven't been able to build a business yet. They haven't built a following. They haven't built a brand. And so they are doing that. And so many entrepreneurs, it was amazing when I revealed that I'm doing this, people who I would never have expected popped out of the woodwork and would send a message and be like, "Oh, you're doing DoorDash? I do Postmates. What do you think of DoorDash? How does this work for you? I used to do Uber. Did you like Lyft better?" And people I never would have expected, because their public persona is a successful professional, just like mine was. And suddenly I discovered that everyone's doing this stuff. The economy as it really is so different than as it presents itself because of the filters we put on our presence, especially on social media. And the problem is, and what's so dangerous about that, is so many people who could change their lives by signing up for DoorDash or Instacart or any number of services don't hear about them, because the people who are successful with them, they don't want to talk about it, because often they're already entrepreneurs and they want to talk about their copywriting business or their marketing business or their coaching business. They don't want to talk about the scruffy thing they do to actually pay the bills for now, because almost this shame in real work. And so I'm trying to push the idea of the nobility of work. Like, it's okay that you work for money. Like, that's what we're supposed to do. You work for money. That's a fine thing and a respectable respectable thing to do. And what I found is, once I started being more honest and more transparent, I got such better reactions from people, because I think people could sense something was amiss. They knew I was faking something. They didn't know what. And so what happened was, they got this vibe of, I think he's faking, and they see me presenting as a coach and they say, "Oh, he must be faking. He's a coach. He must not know what he's doing as a coach." And when I started being more honest and said, "Yeah, I do DoorDash every weekend. That's what I'm doing right now." And I started being, much more transparent about what I was doing. Suddenly people gave me more credibility as a coach, because they all already had that sense of, he's lying about something, but I don't know what. Because now, like, okay, he's laying it all out on the table. So he's being honest about where his money comes from. He's being honest about what he's doing. And I can see what he's doing. And it all seems pretty legit. They're not trying to figure out, what are you hiding? What are you hiding there? I got you. When you lay it all out there. And that's been really, and it makes me feel better. I now know I've got the safety net. If everything falls apart, I can just keep delivering food to people. And I've always got that backup. And if that falls apart for whatever reason, I'm confident I can find something else. I don't know what it'll be. I haven't need to look for it, but I found this. I can find something else.
Absolutely. And it also gives you that relief, and that, like, did I tell them about DoorDash, or did I tell them about DoorDash, or did I not tell them about DoorDash? Or so you're constantly, trying to keep this persona consistent with everyone across the board and stuff. But, if you're just upfront and everything, I still do consulting work to supplement my income and my other businesses and whatnot. And, and hey, if I put food on the table and I pay the bills and stuff,
yep,
good. There may be some times where I've gone through those months like you meant before. Like, can we pay this bill this month, or should we wait a couple more days or whatever? But, you figure it out. You go find some other work. You ramp up the hours. You ramp up the creativity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You figure it out.
And that's a big thing too, is that doing the delivery work, it gives me a break from doing the more intellectual work of my business. I came up with some of my best ideas while out on the road, because if I'm home, I'm either trying to relax, emphasis on trying, but knowing that I have work I need to do, and so it's still kind of in my head, or I'm working and it's kind of grinding away, trying to get things done. And so when I take that day or two off and just go drive around, that's when the ideas, that's when I'll be listening. And sometimes I'm listening to a, business podcast or a book and get an idea. And sometimes listening to something, I'll listen to Mike Duncan's Revolutions podcast, and suddenly something will hit me like, you know what? Oh, I should do this in my business, or actually listening to the Revolutions podcast, I got to the point where we started talking about how he was monetizing. And I'm like, wow, I didn't think I'd get business ideas from the French Revolution, but I'm getting business ideas from how he's running a podcast about the French Revolution. And so it's giving me some ideas from that. So when your mind clears, that's when the best new concepts come in. And that's one of the challenges too for people who are in the struggling classes. is that you can get into that fight or flight survival mode. If you're living paycheck to paycheck and the next a flat tire could put you on the street. You get a flat tire, now your car can't drive, now you can't get to work, you can't afford to fix the tire, so you're going to lose your apartment, and it's you're one flat tire away from the homeless shelter. You're in panic mode. You can't think a week out, you can't think a month out, you can't think about other opportunities. You can only think about one day to the next, and it's exhausting because you have adrenaline and cortisol rushing all the time. And you're constantly in that panic mode. And to some degree, there's, the danger for me is that I could look at that and be like, I found DoorDash. Why can't you? You've got a car, do DoorDash. What's wrong with you? Why are you working at McDonald's? But what's wrong with you is you're working at McDonald's. You're making, in our state, minimum wage is, I think, $10 an hour, might be 11 now. $11 an hour is $440 a week, which I think, no, that would not cover our mortgage. Like, if I worked at McDonald's full time, 40 hours a week, 40 hours a week, every week of the year, it would not cover my mortgage alone. So the idea that people are surviving on this money, of course they don't have any spare mental time. And so when the gurus are saying, well, you work 40 hours a week, but you've still got, they do the 168 hours a week minus 40 for work. You got 128, you sleep. You sleep 60 hours a week. You've now got 68. You've got 40 free hours a week. Why aren't you changing your life? Well, if you have kids, they take up time. If your work is exhausting, you need to recover from that. You need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to go to the bathroom once in a while. You should probably take a shower occasionally. So most people's jobs are very draining. And so and especially if you're living paycheck to paycheck and barely surviving, I can totally understand why people aren't just figuring it out, because they're exhausted, they're worn out, and some speculate that's on purpose, because if you're worn out, instead of cooking, you're going to order out. Instead of actually relaxing, you're going to do retail therapy on Amazon, and you're going to spend money, or you'll spend money on. I was talking to someone yesterday who said he used to live on $300 a week. And he spent a remarkable amount of that money on alcohol because he was so exhausted and so stressed out. He needed something, and it needed to be quick and effective. And so he drank it. He drank his money, which of course meant he didn't have that money and would thus be more stressed out and more exhausted. So I absolutely understand if people get in that trap. But again, the first key is to somehow get hope. And once you have the hope and you realize there is a better way, there is an answer if I can just find it, then look for those opportunities. When you get your stimulus money, which almost everyone in America, and everyone in America needs it. If you're making over $150,000 a year as a couple, or $75,000 as an individual, you probably don't need it as that springboard. But everyone who got it, who needs it, had an opportunity to use that as the lifeline to maybe find some space to discover where the opportunity is. But unfortunately, again, they're also beaten down, and justifiably so. No blame on them. The people who are so beaten down. But for anyone who did stumble across this podcast, who's in that state of I just don't know what to do next, just embrace the idea that there is an answer, even if you can't find it, and be open to it when it comes to you. And just listen, the next time the phone rings, the next random person who Facebook messages you, be open to talking to them. I mean, unless they're a Nigerian scammer, which is usually pretty obvious who they are. But, if it's a real live person who you think is a real person, be open to it. Somebody wants to get coffee with you, take that date. Find out what opportunities there are, and see, you might not be able to find it, but it might find you. That opportunity could fall in your lap. And you have to not brush it off you like a spider. You can't be like, oh, ew, opportunity, get rid of that. Next day it falls in your lap, look at it. Take a second look and be like, could this be it? What's the worst that'll happen? Because if you're living that minimum wage lifestyle, you're already living the worst that could happen.
I like that. And there's a couple of things I wanted to point out that we've kind of discussed earlier, have the opportunity and, just make little switches. I used to be in the retail therapy trap. Mm-hmm. I'd get stressed out from work and can't pay this bill, can't do that, can't go out like or go on vacation like I planned, whatever. So I'd go to Home Depot or I'd go to Walmart or get on Amazon and just spend that money anyways.
Yep.
But then I was able to change it as a reward. Okay, if I just do this one little extra thing, then I'll give myself a little bit of spending money on Amazon.
Yep.
Or if I do this milestone, then it gives me this kind of thing. And it went full circle and made a huge, vast difference for me.
Yeah.
It's that small tweak.
What I found to be a good hack for that too is if I do feel like doing retail therapy, I'll use wish.com. You're familiar with them? It's a cheap crap from China, basically, but it's cheap. And the thing is, when you go on Amazon for retail therapy, by the time it comes in, you're like, why the heck did I buy this? It doesn't matter what you're actually getting if it's any good. You're buying the wrong things anyway for the wrong reason. So if you go on Wish, and you never buy anything that costs more than $3, every once in a while something comes in, like, oh, cool, it's a multifunction flashlight, knife, and cigarette lighter. That's handy for $2. So do your shopping on Wish. You'll buy 9 things for $13. You're not burning through all your money, but you're still kind of getting that same feeling of looking at cool things. But control the impulse and don't convince yourself I need this, because you don't. Like all the stuff you're buying because you're stressed out, you need to shop. You don't need to spend. So find other outlets for that. So instead of going to Home Depot, go to the dollar store. Instead of going on Amazon, go on Wish. Do something kind of more channel, or better yet, don't do that. Go to the library, pick out a book, and retail therapy that way. But or you said build in one little. I have to do one more item off my to-do list, and then I can go to Home Depot. And I'm sure that probably you got 7 things a week done, and that probably changed everything in terms of productivity.
Oh yeah, and it made me feel more better and stuff because I was accomplishing more. I was pushing myself a little bit more, trying to get myself out of that negative grind, that trap, that hamster wheel.
Yep. Yeah. Did it ever happen that you got so into the thing you were doing to earn Home Depot, you never actually got to Home Depot?
There's been many times that, and skipping lunch and.
Yep. But you're doing, okay, I'm going to do this so I can justify going shopping. And then you start doing it and you never go shopping. And you realize you didn't actually need it. You didn't miss it. Instead, you just did productive things.
Yep. I love that. And then also, one thing you mentioned, while you can't necessarily, it might be hard to get, a phone call or whatever with like Tony Robbins or Gary Vaynerchuk and stuff. They've got a lot of great content on YouTube that you can watch. Spend a minute here, 3 minutes there, while you're getting dressed or eating dinner or something like that. So a lot of little things you can do to find those resources to, and of course, you reach out to me. I'm sure you can reach out to you, like you said, it'll take that 30-minute phone call. There's lots of great people, I'm sure, in your surrounding areas and stuff. So.
Yep. Well, and so I run Conference 21, if I can give a quick plug for that. It's a quarterly conference at conference21.com. And one thing we aim for is great speakers, great experts who are accessible. So you go to Conference 21, you see them give a talk, and you're like, wow, that's an incredible talk. That is a national grade, world-class talk I just heard. But you could then reach out to that person and get a phone call with them. So as opposed to, because again, we get so fixated on the national celebrities, there are coaches who are every bit as good as Tony Robbins, who you can, if you can get a 1-to-1 with Tony Robbins, you'd probably be better off than a 1-to-1 with one of these other coaches. But you can't get a 1-to-1 with Tony Robbins, so it doesn't matter. So there's coaches who 1-to-1 with you can do just as much for you as these super celebrities can, and you can get that conversation. Or you can hire them. You want to have Grant Cardone coach you directly. It's going to cost you $10,000 a session or something. Whereas there's other coaches you can hire for $100, $200, $300 a session, who sometimes you do just as much, because often all a coach does is open you up to the things you already knew and the potential you were already carrying. And you can get a $200, $300 an hour coach who can do that just as well as the $10,000 coach because the potential is inside yourself. It's not like they're going to give you some great secrets to the universe. All the information's out there. You just watch enough YouTube. Any solution you're looking for is there. The coach makes you execute it. Having all the knowledge in the world does nothing if you don't execute it.
Exactly. I like how you said that being, you know, reiterates what you said earlier about recognizing that and being open to that that's already there and whatnot.
Yep.
Awesome. Michael, one more question. Where can people find you? You mentioned you got your guy who knows a guy.com and conference21.com. Those great places to reach out, or what would be?
Yes. So guywhoknowsaguy.com is my main website. And so you can set up a call with me on there, and my contact information is there as well. Conference21.com. The next conference is May 21st to 23rd. And so you can find out all about that at conference21.com. And we are looking for speakers. So the speaker application is there as well. And they can also find the daily motivational podcast, the one that people keep telling me that I can never stop now, is motivation.guywhoknowsaguy.com. If you go to motivation.guywhoknowsaguy.com, you can sign up to get it emailed directly to you every day in your email, or you can just go find it on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get podcasts. Although I made the mistake when I launched it of giving it a descriptive name of Morning Motivation. And so when you search for that phrase, Morning Motivation, you find all kinds of things that aren't me. But if you go to the website, then you'll get it direct in your email. Or if you search for Morning Motivation by Michael Whitehouse, that seems to bring it up easier. But if you can't find it, go to guywhoknowsaguy.com, go to the contact form and be like, I can't find your podcast. And I would be happy to connect and point you in the right direction for it.
Awesome. And we'll drop those links in the website and in the comments below as well. And, awesome. Again, Michael, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time. It's been a great conversation. Please, everyone, feel free to reach out to him. He's a great guy, phenomenal. And again, thanks for everyone for tuning in. Thank you for taking the time to listen, to watch, and feel free to reach out to us and let us know how we can help you. Dread no Mondays.